The fact that all men are created alike, even though they have various stations in life, requires mutual services from them. However, they do not owe worship to one another, but everyone is supposed to give that equally to God. It is to him and his name alone that every knee should bow, and before whose throne the 24 elders prostrate themselves. Men who accept such honors from one another rob God of his glory. All of the duties which one person owes another may be performed without the bowing which is essential for God. But it is clear that bowing to other men resulted from a servile nature which some possessed. This led them to set up others as gods, and then an ambitious and proud spirit induced those others to usurp the supremacy of God over their brethren. That is Robert Barclay, who some of you may know is the famous Quaker apologist. Our topic this week: social hierarchies. I'm going to start with a concept that is infused throughout Western civilization that some of you may not even know existed. The Neoplatonists came up with this, and in the Middle Ages this was the understanding of nature and life at the time. It's a flow chart called the Great Chain of Being, and there at the top you see God, and beneath him the saints and angels, and there's the Pope and the king, sort of a controversial part, which one is above the other. I suppose rather depends on who's making the list, and then it goes down the clergy to you there, and you may wonder, well, how do I get in touch with God? Well, you have to go through the intermediary of the priest, and then below you, the believer or the unbelieving, more infernal regions. And this was the understanding, as I said, of the universe at the time, the order of things, until the catalyst for the Reformation, Martin Luther, came along and knocked the priests off the pillar of the intermediary between the people and God, and made a flowchart that simply looked a little bit more like this. He didn't actually make a flowchart, I just did to illustrate, but there's you, and it's very easy for you to get down here. But how do you get to here? Through the substitutionary sacrifice of Jesus, and that alone, which is scriptural as opposed to the Baroque Great Chain of Being. It also illustrates that all are created equal, sinners in this case, and all are equally going to die. The Pope's going to die, the King's going to die, you're going to die. We're all human, and these functions are simply that. The person who sent this in mentioned social hierarchies, and when I hear that part of it, I think about class, which is generally an elevated position of social rank, which the individual tends to have done nothing to merit. Perhaps they were born into a certain family, perhaps they have accrued a great deal of money, but it speaks nothing towards their character and nothing towards what they contribute to society. Indeed, very often those are the biggest leeches upon society. However, there are hierarchies that are important. I think we can all agree, I think we should all agree, that class is frivolous. But hierarchies are essential in some ways. I think about an orchestra without a conductor, and what a din would occur. I remember back to my hippie days and once putting together a play in which there was no director, and the quality of that show was about what you might imagine. I'm also reminded of contemporary poetry. In the past 60 years or so, there has been this movement away from form poetry and a sort of loosey-goosey, write down your thoughts and break them up into lines that make it look like poetry, the quality of which is about what you would imagine. I contend that fences and forms are important, that they give us direction and give us an appropriate outlet to our creativity. And you are a member of a society, whether you like it or not. And you enjoy the benefits that are reaped by being a member of a society. Your duty is to produce and not just consume. If we had a society where people just consumed and were only interested in self-interest, we would have a society where the economy would collapse and people would be so polarized over issues that we would be on the brink of civil unrest. The world does not owe you a living. I know so many people who come home from a hard day's work and feel as if they've earned their chair time, their time to sit and chill in front of the television set. I think that it is our duty to always be productive, and I'll elaborate in a moment, but I also think about a concept that you may have run across in your travels, that of the nouveau riche, which is a term that is meant to describe those who have come into money recently. We have some people here in Chico who are quite wealthy. None of them live in this neighborhood. Some of them come from old money, but in my experience, the lion's share of them are nouveau riche. I'm reminded of a time, and the shibboleth of the nouveau riche is treating their inferiors abominably. I'm reminded of a time when Lori and I went to a fine dining restaurant here in town. There was this wealthy couple that were treating the wait staff and the host just terribly, and the fools had no idea how boorishly they came off to their fellow patrons. They thought that they were hot stuff. The decay of civility in this country, in my opinion, is born from this "don't tread on me" mentality. You may have seen the flags from early in this nation, "don't tread on me," and there's this snake coiled up and he's going to bite you if you tread on him. There's this attitude that is ubiquitous in this country that drives me up the wall, and it transcends gender barriers, but it is the tough guy attitude, which to me translates to the overgrown baby, the person who says, "I'm not going to accept anybody's authority. You can't tell me what to do. I'll do whatever I want." Whereas, in my opinion, and again, this transcends gender and all barriers, the true man is the gentleman. And the gentleman dresses like a grown-up and is polite and shows respect to their fellow human beings. A gentleman treats his superiors as superiors, treats his peers as his equals, and treats his inferiors as his equals or better. Because this move towards self-gratification only breeds discontent and sorrow. The way to happiness and contentment is service, is care about others, is trying to keep things functioning, and above all, trying to contribute to and engaging with the world around them. So to sum up my two thoughts on social hierarchies, we made it up! It's a fabrication, so those of you who find yourself in a position of power, bear in mind that this does not make you qualitatively better. It simply means that you are performing an important function, and it is crucial. We need to respect people in positions of authority because we reap the benefits of their functions. They are the glue that hold things together. We all enjoy having a police officer, and we all enjoy having a president, and we ought to treat these people with respect for what they do, because they are the thing keeping the earth rotating on its axis and not spinning off into space where we would all die. Ta-ta.